Alright guys, so in this video we're going to cover COVID and exactly what is COVID and why is it that Trump wants to call it the China virus or the invisible enemy or the pandemic or the plague and so forth and so on. But before we do that, again, I want to say that it is possible that the deep state could be taken down before inauguration, during the Capitol protest that will become rioting, or during the other stuff during the inauguration itself when everybody's there, and so forth and so on. But the highest and most likely outcome is that you're going to have both presidents. That's all I'm saying in the last video. It is the most likely outcome, and the only thing that really and truly, genuinely makes any sense according to the plan. I mean, as it sits right now, let's say that right here, right now, we were to take down the deep state. If we were to do that in the here and now, in this very moment, you would have a civil war right here in the United States, which would become a civil war in every single nation on the earth. You would have absolute chaos, and you would have the enemy outcome. You wouldn't have a blessing. You would have destruction all over the place, because of the amount of people that are still asleep would rise up, and not only are they asleep, but they're angry, they're mad. The narrative that is in their brain has them ready to attack and to kill Trump supporters. Think about it. You have to get those people awake and everybody awake before you can begin to take down the deep state. The plan is you, the people, getting the truth and completely and utterly waking up. When you do, you yourself will rise up to shut down the defunct government and establish a government that is good for we the people. But until that happens, there's no way to take down the deep state, because you'll have chaos on the earth, and they are not about chaos, they're about law and order. So that's all I'm trying to say in the last video. The most likely situation is you will have a Biden-Harris administration, but the reality of it all, if you're not caught in the narrative, is that we have a president of the Republic, and that is Donald J. Trump. He is the 46th President of the United States of America, or these United States of America, the actual genuine republic, and he is the president of the real genuine government, whereas Biden and Harris will be the president and vice president of the corporation. And it's not just that, okay? Like, a lot of people that are awake are not completely awake. They have no idea of baby organ harvesting, what Planned Parenthood is all about. They don't have any idea about those types of things. They don't have a clue about the vast majority of things, such as the sacrificing of babies, the eating of babies, the drinking of adrenochrome from the babies, and all these other kinds of things. So really, I mean, there's no way at this point to take down the deep state. First and foremost, the people have to wake up. And until that happens on a massive scale, they won't be taken down. So most likely situation ahead of us is that you will have Biden and Harris come into office, and while they're in office, slowly but surely, because of who Trump put into Supreme Court and all these other key positions, slowly but surely, while the deep state sits here thinking that everything's good, because so far everyone Trump has put into office in those key positions has stood against Trump, so they think they're on the deep state side. So once the deep state is in position, then the actual true republic can come in and begin the process of lawsuits, maybe not through Trump, but through other people, so that they don't have a clue what's going on there. Goes in through these other people, and then the evidences begin to leak out to the public. You also have WikiLeaks. You also have all these other different websites and people that can begin to drop information and begin to open eyes up when we do not have anybody in office, because the U.S. corporation is a ticking time bomb. It's going down, and all the key players are in position. The Titanic is in fact sinking. Now, the Titanic sinking had nothing to do with an iceberg and all these kinds of things, okay? There were very important people on that ship, and in order to get the Federal Reserve into position, which was an illegal move, they had to wipe out specific people, very important people, very rich people. And that's exactly what the Titanic did. So the deep state took down the Titanic and everybody on board the Titanic. This time, the Patriots are going to take down the Titanic and all the evil, wicked people on board it. So, let's go ahead and get into this China virus thing. Okay, so if we come up here to post 3896, we see, in quotes, the China virus. The China virus, as Trump likes to say it, and he always emphasizes China. And Q also did the exact same thing here. The China virus, okay? This is COVID. So when we go up here and we look at the picture that he gave us, the first thing we see is that it's a severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus as an emerging and re-emerging infection. But it's a severe acute respiratory syndrome. So it's a flu-like or flu type of a virus. Okay? It's basically put. And we know that when you look at the statistics about the flu and COVID, that the flu basically didn't exist. I mean, it existed, but it barely even existed for the first time in like forever. And instead, this COVID thing existed. And so really what was going on is COVID was replacing the flu. It was just the flu being labeled as COVID. Now, it was a biological warfare, okay? It was planned by the deep state to release on the public at large, all over the earth. And literally, they were doing everything in their power to get Trump infected with that virus, okay? You're talking about biological warfare. But let's see what it says here. So we know it's a severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus as an emerging and re-emerging infection. So this is what the topic is all about. The paper is all about. This is posted back in 2007. 2007. So they definitely knew about it way prior to it actually being released on the public at large. And this paper, or this study, was done by the Clinical Microbiology Reviews. And again, it was October of 2007. Now, when we come down here and take a look at what they have highlighted here, it clearly states that the presence of a large reservoir of SARS-CoV-like viruses in horseshoe bats, together with the culture of eating exotic mammals in southern China, is a time bomb. This is exactly, precisely, the narrative that was fed to the minds of men when COVID came out. So all the way back in 2007, they had the entire story, the entire narrative already ready to go. This is how far in advance the deep state works, and a lot farther in advance than even this. So understand, guys, so you had, what, 2020, this virus hits, but all the way back in 2007, they already had it established. And they had it established even before 2007, or this paper would have never came out to exist. So it just goes to show you how far into the future the deep state plans, okay? And it also gives you an idea of how far into the future the plan to save the world is. So again, everything is fluid in the plan, because they know what they're going to do and how they're going to do it, because they've infiltrated the whole entire system. They understand it from inside out. So that's what it obviously and clearly it is a pre-planned agenda against the public at large. Now, they didn't expect to have Trump in office when they released this. They were expecting to have Hillary Clinton. Remember, the plan was 16 years. The end of the plan was 16 years. The total annihilation of the United States of America was a 16-year plan. They would put Obama in place for 8 years. He would remove the Supreme Court judges and all the other judges, and he would leave all that empty and blank for Hillary to come into office, begin to shut down the military, absolutely deplete it to the point that it cannot do anything on the earth, and then take over the satellite situation, send it over to China, and all this chaos was going to erupt on the earth. And the United States was going to be annihilated. Period. That was the plan. If you don't understand that, go do research. Take some time off of work or whatever you got to do, and go research so that you know exactly what the plan was. The plan was the annihilation of the United States. She was going to put in specific judges, and they were going to go against the Constitution. The Constitution was going to be done away with, and all these other kinds of things. And basically everybody would be rounded up. That is, the people that believed the truth, that knew the truth. They had the FEMA camps ready. Everything was pre-planned in the Obama's administration, and Hillary was to come in and to completely finish it. Now, I don't want to carry on and on and on with this because we got a speech to go through. And in this speech, it's going to be revealed to us what is the truth about coronavirus. But it's a long speech. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break down the speech. I'm going to give you certain parts and pieces of it, quite a bit of it, but not the entire video because it's 43 minutes long. And I mean, if I break down the entire 43 minutes, you're talking about 3 or 4 hour video. Nobody can sit through that. Nobody. So we're going to break this down, and I will leave a link to that video so that you can go and listen to the entirety of it. Okay, so this is the speech we're going to listen to, and it is Michael Pence. But I want you to understand something. Now, everyone just seen Michael Pence play the role of Judas Iscariot. So at this point, people have this concept of Michael Pence being a traitor. And if you go back through his past and his history, especially in Indiana, being the governor of Indiana, and doing absolutely nothing about child trafficking, human trafficking, and all the other things the entire time he was governor of Indiana, he has to redeem himself from his past. So he may have been playing a role as Judas Iscariot in the movie, in that the scripted movie everybody's watching, in order to get the basically the Congress to do exactly what Trump and team needed them to do in order to bring in the Biden administration, right? So that we can begin to show people this massive beast that controls every aspect of everybody's lives. Okay, so he may have been redeeming himself playing that role. But, again, he has to redeem himself in some way, some form, or some fashion from his past, or else he goes down with the deep state. It's that simple. So we don't know exactly, is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? We still don't know. But in this video right here that you're watching, that we're going to share clips of and discuss, Michael Pence in this role plays a righteous man. What he does is he brings forth the absolute truth. Everything in this speech is spot on. There's no error, no slips, no mistakes. Everything he presents in this video is absolute truth. And through this video, through this speech right here, he reveals to the world what COVID is, what the China virus is, what the invisible enemy is, what the plague on the earth is. And so we're going to go through this video and break it down and discuss it. We're going to start with the beginning so we know where he's at and what institution he's talking to and what the role of that institution is. We'll start with that. But again, I want to say that every one of these actors are playing various roles in order to set up the deep state for the next move. As I said, Trump has already put the right people in the right positions into that corporation so that as the narrative plays out, they have control of that corporation and can bring them down at the right time. We just got to get to that time. So let's start out with the very first part here where he explains what institution he's at and what the role of that institution is.
And to all of you who, true to your mission in this place, think about the future in unconventional ways. It is an honor to be back at the Hudson Institute. For more than half a century, this institute has dedicated itself to advancing global security, prosperity, and freedom. And while Hudson's hometowns have changed over the years, one thing has been constant. You've always advanced that vital truth, that American leadership lights the way. And today, speaking of leadership, allow me to begin by bringing greetings from a great champion of American leadership at home and abroad. I bring greetings from the 45th President of the United States of America, President Donald Trump.
Okay, so he's at the Hudson Institute, and the Hudson Institute is all about advancing global security as well as prosperity and freedom, okay? That's what the Institute is designed for. And again, this is coming out of that shining light called the USA, the only shining light on a hill for the whole world that keeps the world from falling completely. But they're working on the United States. Like I said, they're supposed to bring Obama in. After Obama, they were going to bring Hillary in and bring down the collapse of the United States. And this would bring the collapse of the entire world. You'd have a reset. We would have new nations. People that understood the truth would be eliminated, and we would go back through this cycle all over again. But this is the end. And this time we're going to be shown what it is, this entirety of this beast, and then it's going to be eliminated from off the face of the earth, because the people all over the world, as they come to know the absolute truth, will stand up and rise up and demand each and every single one of these people be removed from the face of the earth. So I'm not going to play the entirety of this video, guys. It's 43 minutes long, like I said, and it would take me literally 3 to 4, even 5 hours to cover everything said in this video. He is a man of righteousness in this video. That's his role in the movie here. And he explains the truth, the absolute truth. And I'm only going to pick up on key points of the video. My suggestion to you, you go to this video. I'll have the link down below in the description of the video. Go to this video and listen to everything that is said from beginning to end, the entire 43 minutes. Okay, so let's get started. We know we're at the Institute. We know that the point of the Institute is to bring forth global security, prosperity, and freedom. That's their role. That's what they do, coming forth from the United States unto all the world, is to bring prosperity and freedom to the various nations of the earth, as well as global security. So there's no better place to give this speech than right here at the Hudson Institute. So let's go ahead now and get started with the speech.
But I come before you today because the American people deserve to know that as we speak, Beijing is employing a whole-of-government approach, using political, economic, and military tools as well as propaganda to advance its influence and benefit its interests in the United States.
Okay, so this speech was given in 2018, and he says here that we have a whole-of-government approach that is political, economic, military, and propaganda. Where have we heard this before? We heard it from John F. Kennedy Sr. as he tried to warn the entire world and the American public, and he tried to wake everybody up and tell them the truth of what was going on this earth. Let's take a very quick cut version of that speech.
Ladies and gentlemen, the very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning, and no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations.
I'm not going to spend much time on this. I've played the entirety of the JFK speech on my videos, on my channel, on the YouTube channel, many times. And a lot of people just skipped over it, didn't listen to it. It tells you absolutely everything you need to know, and his life was taken because he revealed the truth to the public. And if you don't think that they're going to try with everything they have to arrest and kill Donald Trump after the Biden administration is in place, then you're kidding yourself. Okay? There has to be a quote-unquote scare event, and that scare event has not happened yet. Neither has the Sky event. Okay, there's a lot of things that still have not happened that Q told us is going to be happening. So again, the most likely outcome of the plan is that the Biden administration takes office in the United States corporation while we maintain our president, for those awake, inside of the Republic. And the Republic will, through the military, after the revealing of facts and truth, take down the corporation, or the deep state, which is a monolithic structure. It combines political, economic, military, propaganda, scientific, and so forth and so on, exactly what Michael Pence just said. And Michael Pence just verified exactly what John F. Kennedy Sr. told the world and tried to warn the American public and wake the American public up to back in those days. Now, we're going to continue this speech. Again, I'm only going to play certain parts of this speech that will reveal exactly what the COVID virus is. But I could tell you right now, it is, in fact, this military industrial complex, this satanic, worldwide satanic occult. This kingdom of darkness which has reigned and ruled over man our entire lives. It is called China virus because the core of it is now in China. But we're going to see exactly what China is doing to us. And that's what Michael Pence is going to reveal to us. So let's go ahead and continue. But understand that the plan, you must be shown this beast. Because until you see it, you're not going to have the strength to rise up and to do something. But let's go ahead and continue.
China is also applying this power in more proactive ways than ever before to exert influence and interfere in the domestic policy and politics of this country. In our national security strategy that the President released last December, he described a new era of great power competition. Foreign nations have begun to, as we wrote, reassert their influence regionally and globally. And they're contesting America's geopolitical advantages and trying, in essence, to change the international order in their favor. In this strategy, President Trump made clear that the United States of America has adopted a new approach to China. We seek a relationship grounded in fairness, reciprocity, and respect for sovereignty. And we have taken strong and swift action.
So many photographers. What? So many photographers. From you? No, one. We have one. Those are all yours.
This is the very first time in the 92 year history of my museum that at the place are visiting television. 这一村里面不少人。
And so we saw that Trump went to Beijing and went specifically to the Forbidden City. You understand that nobody but the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, is allowed into that area. They were presenting to the world that they have accepted that he has authority over China. Why? China's a corporation. He is in the Republic. We also saw when he went to Iran and they did the sword dance for him, which is only done for the king of Iran. We also saw it in all the other places, like when he went to England and the queen followed him around instead of him following the queen around. We seen it everywhere he went. We saw him. We saw the other nations submitting to President Trump. So very important to understand this, okay? The policy that was put in place was to bring peace and stability on North Korea, China, and that whole entire surrounding area. Let's continue. Now what we're going to do is we're going to listen to how our relationship with China used to be and then how it deteriorated over time. So let's listen to that part.
When our young nation went searching in the wake of the Revolutionary War for new markets for our exports, the Chinese people welcomed American traders laden with ginseng and fur. When China suffered through indignities and exploitations during her so-called century of humiliation, America refused to join in and advocated the open door policy so that we could have freer trade with China and preserve their sovereignty. When American missionaries brought the good news to China's shores, they were moved by the rich culture of an ancient and vibrant people. And not only did they spread their faith, but those same missionaries founded some of China's first and finest universities. When the Second World War arose, we stood together as allies in the fight against imperialism. And in that war's aftermath, America ensured that China became a charter member of the United Nations and a great shaper of the post-war world. But soon after it took power in 1949, the Chinese Communist Party began to pursue authoritarian expansionism. It is remarkable to think that only 5 years after our nations had fought together, we fought each other in the mountains and valleys of the Korean Peninsula. My own father saw combat on that frontier of freedom. But not even the brutal Korean War could diminish our mutual desire to restore the ties that for so long had bound our peoples together. China's estrangement from the United States ended in 1972, and soon after we reestablished diplomatic relations. We began to open our economies to one another, and American universities began training a new generation of Chinese engineers, business leaders, scholars, and officials. After the fall of the Soviet Union, we assumed that a free China was inevitable. Heady with optimism at the turn of the 21st century, America agreed to give Beijing open access to our economy, and we brought China into the World Trade Organization. Previous administrations made this choice in the hope that freedom in China would expand in all of its forms, not just economically, but politically, with a newfound respect for classical liberal principles, private property, personal liberty, religious freedom, the entire family of human rights. But that hope has gone unfulfilled. The dream of freedom remains distant for the Chinese people. And while Beijing still pays lip service to reform and opening, Deng Xiaoping's famous policy now rings hollow.
Now, what he didn't tell you is that the United Nations, as well as the World Trade Organization, both of those are designed by the New World Order or the Worldwide Satanic Occult, or it just keeps continually morphing, guys. It's got all sorts of names. You can call it Babylon, you can call it Rome, there's all sorts of names. But it's the same thing. It's the same beast. It's the earth beast that's on the earth, that's being given power and influence and knowledge and all these other things from the heavenly beast. The 10 heads and 10 horns heavenly beast matches the earth 10 heads and 10 horn, or 7 heads and 10 horn earthly beast. It's the same thing, but the focus of it is now right there in China. Okay, and when they built the World Trade Center and the United Nations, these things were designed to bring about the New World Order. Okay, and China comes in and literally seizes control of the United Nations. That's what they do, and trade. And we end up in deficits and all these other things, and we're giving everything to China, and China's not even giving nothing back to anybody, is what's happening. Now, we're going to continue to listen to what he says, guys, and I'm sorry this is going to be a long video. I may have to split it in half and make it into 2 videos, because we got to cover a lot of what Mike Pence says here, because everything he says is true. It's right on. It's dead on. It's precise. But you got to understand what this virus is. It is China. Okay? And when Hillary got into office, or if Hillary would have got into office to complete the 16-year plan, everything would have eventually been handed over to China. Now, you understand that China has a points system. So if you do good, you rise up in points. If you do bad, you fall in points, and everything's taken away from you. We see that, for instance, on YouTube. YouTube says, okay, you want to earn money? You want to play ads on your videos? Tell us, answer these questions right here, and decide if your video can have ads or not, if you can make money or not, and or if it's going to be limited ads or no ads, or what's going to be the deal. And it's based on points. And so if you guess it wrong, then on the next video they warn you you've guessed several of them wrong, and we're not going to listen to what you got to say, and you're not going to make any money. Okay, So, but if you get it right and you according to what we want you to say, then you will let your videos play with ads, and you can make money, and you can be the news. Okay, so that's how it works. It's that same thing again that's going on in China is going to go on across the entirety of the earth if allowed to continue. But let's continue to listen to what Mike Pence has to say here.
Over the past 17 years, China's GDP has grown ninefold. It's become the second largest economy in the world. Much of this success was driven by American investment in China. And the Chinese Communist Party has also used an arsenal of policies inconsistent with free and fair trade, including tariffs, quotas, currency manipulation, forced technology transfer, intellectual property theft, and industrial subsidies that are handed out like candy to foreign investment. These policies have built Beijing's manufacturing base at the expense of its competitors, especially the United States of America. China's actions have contributed to a trade deficit with the United States that last year ran to $375 billion, nearly half of our global trade deficit. As President Trump said just this week, in his words, we rebuilt China over the last 25 years. Now, through the Made in China 2025 plan, the Communist Party has set its sights on controlling 90% of the world's most advanced industries, including robotics, biotechnology, and artificial intelligence. To win the commanding heights of the 21st century economy, Beijing has directed its bureaucrats and businesses to obtain American intellectual property, the foundation of our economic leadership, by any means necessary. Beijing now requires many American businesses to hand over their trade secrets as the cost of doing business in China. It also coordinates and sponsors the acquisition of American firms to gain ownership of their creations. Worst of all, Chinese security agencies have masterminded the wholesale theft of American technology, including cutting-edge military blueprints. And using that stolen technology, the Chinese Communist Party is turning plowshares into swords on a massive scale. China now spends as much on its military as the rest of Asia combined. And Beijing has prioritized capabilities to erode America's military advantages on land, at sea, in the air, and in space. China wants nothing less than to push the United States of America from the Western Pacific and attempt to prevent us from coming to the aid of our allies. But they will fail. Beijing is also using its power like never before. Chinese ships routinely patrol around the Senkaku Islands, which are administered by Japan. And while China's leader stood in the Rose Garden at the White House in 2015 and said that his country had, and I quote, no intention to militarize the South China Sea. Today, Beijing has deployed advanced anti-ship and anti-air missiles atop an archipelago of military bases constructed on artificial islands. China's aggression was on display this week when a Chinese naval vessel came within 45 yards of the USS Decatur as it conducted freedom of navigation operations in the South China Sea, forcing our ship to quickly maneuver to avoid collision. Despite such reckless harassment, The United States Navy will continue to fly, sail, and operate wherever international law allows and our national interests demand. We will not be intimidated, and we will not stand down.
All right, so as you can begin to put this picture together, you can begin to see that this is that nation that all of the other nations committed fornication with. Now, what people don't understand is that the United Nations, the World Trade Organization, and the European Union were all designed to bring China into power. So it shifted from the European Union, and secretly, mystery Babylon was formed. That's China. Now he goes on to talk about a couple things which we're going to skip, and then we're going to pick it up where he begins to explain how China had a hope and then began to descend. So let's go ahead and pick it up right there.
For a time, Beijing inched toward greater liberty and respect for human rights. But in recent years, China has taken a sharp U-turn toward control and oppression of its own people. Today, China has built an unparalleled surveillance state, and it's growing more expansive and intrusive, often with the help of U.S. technology. What they call the Great Firewall of China likewise grows higher, drastically restricting the free flow of information to the Chinese people. And by 2020, China's rulers aim to implement an Orwellian system premised on controlling virtually every facet of human life, the so-called social credit score. In the words of that program's official blueprint, it will allow the trustworthy to roam everywhere under heaven while making it hard for the discredited to take a single step. And when it comes to religious freedom, a new wave of persecution is crashing down on Chinese Christians, Buddhists, and Muslims. Last month, Beijing shut down one of China's largest underground churches. Across the country, authorities are tearing down crosses, burning Bibles, and imprisoning believers.
Okay, now having him said all that, remember that Biden is owned by, literally owned by China. Now, there's going to be an impeachment effort against Joe Biden as soon as he takes office. I posted it on my Twitter account. The senator's going to speak up, and she's going to try and get the Biden to be impeached based on all the different things that him and his son has done with China and Ukraine and all the other different nations, including the point blank talk where he specifically says that he withheld money on purpose until they would do a certain thing. I mean, this is treason that he committed. So there's going to be an impeachment effort. But what you got to understand is that, like I said, the focus is what? Europe. That's where the focus is. When you go into the book of Revelations and you watch the metamorphosis, and it goes from Rome to the Christian Roman Empire to the Holy Roman Empire, and it comes down through time, it becomes the European Union. And the control factor of all of this is the papacy, the Pope, the Vatican, right? And Pence is going to tell us how it's connected to the Vatican. China, China, China. The China virus, the plague that is coming upon the whole earth. He told the world over and over again. He told the American people, China virus, plague, invisible enemy. He's been telling everybody this whole time what's coming, and to prepare and to be ready, because it must be shown to the world before it can be taken down. It's only when you get to that precipice, that moment of destruction, that you will find the strength to rise up and to make a change and to bring this down once and for all. Like I said, the vast majority of people have opened their eyes, right? They're no longer sleeping. They open their eyes, but they haven't gone through the process to actually wake up, to literally see the full scale, the full scope of this all-encompassing power that is over our lives. But let's go ahead and listen further to what Mike Pence has to say here.
And Beijing has now reached a deal with the Vatican that gives the avowedly atheist Communist Party a direct role in appointing Catholic bishops. For China's Christians, these are desperate times. Beijing is also cracking down on Buddhism. Over the past decade, more than 150 Tibetan Buddhist monks have lit themselves on fire to protest China's repression of their beliefs and their culture. And in Xinjiang, the Communist Party has imprisoned as many as 1 million Muslim Uyghurs in government camps, where they endure round-the-clock brainwashing. Survivors of the camps have described their experience as a deliberate attempt by Beijing to strangle Uyghur culture and stamp out the Muslim faith. As history attests, though, a country that oppresses its own people rarely stops there. And Beijing also aims to extend its reach across the wider world. As Hudson's own Dr. Michael Pillsbury has written, China has opposed the actions and goals of the United States government. Indeed, China is building its own relationships with America's allies and enemies that contradict any peaceful or productive intentions of Beijing. In fact, China uses so-called debt diplomacy to expand its influence. Today, that country is offering hundreds of billions of dollars in infrastructure loans to governments from Asia to Africa to Europe and even Latin America. Yet the terms of those loans are opaque at best, and the benefits invariably flow overwhelmingly to Beijing. Just ask Sri Lanka, which took on a massive debt to let Chinese state companies build a port of questionable commercial value. 2 years ago, that country could no longer afford its payments, so Beijing pressured Sri Lanka to deliver the new port directly into Chinese hands. It may soon become a forward military base for China's growing blue water navy. Within our own hemisphere, Beijing has extended a lifeline to the corrupt and incompetent Maduro regime in Venezuela that's been oppressing its own people. They pledged $5 billion in questionable loans to be repaid with oil. China is also that country's single largest creditor, saddling the Venezuelan people with more than $50 billion in debt, even as their democracy vanishes.
So he goes on to give other examples and continues that line of speech there. We're going to skip ahead in the video in order to save some time in the video that you're watching here. Again, go back and watch the entirety of this video, guys. If you really want to understand what's happening, go back and watch the entirety of this video. Let's go to a specific spot, listen to what he says, and then we'll jump to another spot.
Now, these are only a few of the ways that China has sought to advance its strategic interests across the world with growing intensity and sophistication. Yet previous administrations all but ignored China's actions. And in many cases, they abetted them. But those days are over. Under President Trump's leadership, the United States of America has been defending our interests with renewed American strength. We've been making the strongest military in the history of the world stronger still. Earlier this year, President Trump signed into law the largest increase in our national defense since the days of Ronald Reagan. $716 billion to extend the strength of the American military to every domain. We're modernizing our nuclear arsenal. We're fielding and developing new cutting-edge fighters and bombers. We're building a new generation of aircraft carriers and warships. We're investing as never before in our armed forces. And this includes initiating the process to establish the United States Space Force to ensure our continued dominance in space, and we've taken action to authorize increased capability in the cyber world to build deterrence against our adversaries. At President Trump's direction, we're also implementing tariffs on $250 billion in Chinese goods. with the highest tariffs specifically targeting the advanced industries that Beijing is trying to capture and control. And as the President has also made clear, we will levy even more tariffs with the possibility of substantially more than doubling that number unless a fair and reciprocal trade deal is made.
So, as he said, the previous administrations abetted, they helped, they actually helped China to do all these things to us. Okay? Now, the Trump administration came in, established the republic, transferred the power from Washington, D.C. back to we the people, and then went about building the military. Now, we have two separate militaries in the United States. Okay? The United States Corporation has the deep state military, which involves the Pentagon and the Air Force and many other things. This is why you're seeing people step down in the Air Force. But the Air Force is deeply penetrated and infiltrated by China. So therefore, we had to create the Space Force. What exactly is space? Is it outer space where there's galaxies and all these things? Or what exactly is space? Space is the distance between you and the screen that you're watching. Space is the distance between you and any other object on the earth. Space is air. Air Force. Space Force was designed to get around the infiltrated, dirty Air Force. Space Force belongs to the Republic. The military belongs to the Republic. This is why they told Nancy Pelosi the other day, the military, that we don't work for you. Because they work for the Republic and for the President of the Republic, not the corporation. Very important to understand these things, guys. As Trump said, China wants Biden to become the President of the United States. In fact, we're going to listen to Pence here in just a second tell us exactly what the plan is. And we're going to see that this actually unfolded before our very eyes. Right? And so what I'm saying is we've already begun the process of showing the world the truth. And as the evidences and the proofs begin to trickle out and then pour out to the public, there will be an uprising by the public at large all over the world to bring these evil, wicked people down once and for all, earthwide. It's very important to understand these things. So let's continue to listen to what the president, or what Vice President Michael Pence has to say here.
The American people deserve to know. In response to the strong stand that President Trump has taken, Beijing is pursuing a comprehensive and coordinated campaign to undermine support for the president, our agenda, and our nation's most cherished ideals. I want to tell you today what we know about China's actions here at home, some of which we've gleaned from intelligence assessments, some of which are publicly available, but all of which are fact. As I said before, as we speak, Beijing is employing a whole-of-government approach to advance its influence and benefit its interests. It's employing this power in more proactive and coercive ways to interfere in the domestic policies of this country and to interfere in the politics of the United States. The Chinese Communist Party is rewarding or coercing American businesses, movie studios, universities, think tanks, scholars, journalists, and local, state, and federal officials.
And what he just explained to you was the tentacles, right? They use the echo chambers to control the narratives, to control the minds of men, to manipulate. They control the schools, they control the food, they control the governments, they control local, federal, state governments, county, everything. Right there in your neighborhood, in the smallest of smallest towns, China has infiltrated and controls those people. That's how big of a scope we're talking about. And we're talking on an earth-wide scale. Every nation, every people. That's China, the China virus that is plaguing the entirety of the earth. This is what we are up against. This is what people do not see nor understand. If they did, they would already have arisen and brought this to its knees and ended it once and for all. Until they see it, until they experience it, until we get to that precipice, that moment of destruction, the strength will not be found in the people to arise and to bring it down once and for all. Let's continue to listen to the Vice President of the United States.
And worst of all, China has initiated an unprecedented effort to influence American public opinion, the 2018 elections, and the environment leading into the 2020 presidential elections. To put it bluntly, President Trump's leadership is working, and China wants a different American president. There can be no doubt. China is meddling in America's democracy. As President Trump said just last week, we have, in his words, found that China has been attempting to interfere in our upcoming midterm elections. Our intelligence community says that China is targeting U.S. state and local governments and officials to exploit any divisions between federal and local levels on policy. It's using wedge issues like trade tariffs to advance Beijing's political influence. In June, Beijing itself circulated a sensitive document entitled Propaganda and Censorship Notice. It laid out its strategy. It stated that China must, in their words, quote, strike accurately and carefully, splitting apart different domestic groups in the United States of America.
Now, when you listen to the Democratic Party and you listen to the Republican Party, both of which are part of the China operation, because you don't have Republicans and Democrats, that's a division. What did he just tell you? They are trying to make divisions. That's what they do. They divide you by race. They divide you by color. They divide you by nation. They divide you by whether you're male or female. They divide you by any means that they possibly can, because a united people under God are unstoppable. This is the message of Q and of Trump and of the Q team. To unite, to love thy neighbor, to not allow these divisions, to unite, to come together for a common cause. The cause is what? The final battle between good versus evil, light versus dark, God versus Satan. That's what this is all about. This is what it's always been about. But the people are only opening their eyes. They have not woke all the way up to see this all-encompassing military industrial complex that John F. Kennedy Sr. tried to get the people to see and to understand before they took him out. Okay? You are learning what this plague is, what this China virus is. And as I said, when we are done here, we will go back and revisit the other video, and you will hear Trump say something that you didn't hear him say the first time because you couldn't see. They are creating divisions, and it gets worse. Let's continue to listen to the President, the Vice President of the United States.
To that end, Beijing has mobilized covert actors, front groups, and propaganda outlets to shift Americans' perception of Chinese policy. As a senior career member of our intelligence community told me just this week, what the Russians are doing pales in comparison to what China is doing across this country. And the American people deserve to know it.
Now does it understand why they said Russia, Russia, Russia? Russia, Russia, Russia. Right? Focus here. Not look here, look there, look everywhere, but don't look over here at China. They never bring up China. They never let you know about China. They tell you about Russia. They tell you about President's phone call with Ukraine. They completely hide the conversation and the dealings of Joe Biden in Ukraine. They tell you about everything, but they keep your focus off of what? The enemy, China, the worldwide satanic occult, where they sacrifice babies, drink their blood, and do all sorts of unimaginable, wicked, evil, corrupt, sickening things. Let's continue to listen to the Vice President of the United States.
Senior Chinese officials have also tried to influence business leaders to encourage them to condemn our trade actions, leveraging their desire to maintain their operations in China. In one recent example, China threatened to deny a business license for a major U.S. corporation if they refused to speak out against our administration's policies. And when it comes to influencing the midterms, you need only look at Beijing's tariffs in response to ours. The tariffs imposed by China to date specifically targeted industries and states that would play an important role in the 2018 elections. By one estimate, more than 80% of U.S. counties targeted by China voted for President Trump and I in 2016. Now China wants to turn these voters against our administration. And China is also directly appealing to American voters. Last week, the Chinese government paid to have a multi-page supplement inserted into the Des Moines Register, the paper of record of the home state of our ambassador to China, and a pivotal state in 2018 and 2020. The supplement, designed to look like the news articles, cast our trade policies as reckless and harmful to Iowans. Fortunately, Americans aren't buying it. For example, American farmers are standing with this president and seeing real results from the strong stance that he's taken, including this week's U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement, where we've substantially opened North American markets to U.S. products. The USMCA is a great win for American farmers and American manufacturers.
So now you're able to see how they go in and they create these fake, what appear to be news articles, but really it's an agenda, it's a propaganda mission to persuade the minds of men. They control all the different aspects. They control your newspaper, they control your radio broadcast, they control the television, they control the TV shows, they control the news, they control the movies, they control the actors, they control the singers, they control the board of the boards over all education, they control the food industry. You name it, they control it. They manipulate it, and they persuade the minds of men in order to gradually, slowly, so slowly. Look, if you take a frog and you put it in water, that frog will stay in the water. And if you gradually turn up the heat, and I mean gradually, very gradually, the frog will stay in that water and will literally get to a point where it boils to death and never jump out of the water. That's exactly what this plague is. It is a gradual cranking down of the system until China ultimately controls every nation on the earth. The worldwide satanic occult controls every nation on the earth. This is what people can't see. This is the invisible enemy. It uses legislation, it uses politics, it uses the economy, it uses military, it uses propaganda, it uses sciences to dumb down the population. It uses every avenue, every aspect, every single thing to control and to manipulate. It is, quote unquote, the Matrix. That's what it is. That's what the China virus really is. The COVID virus is nothing more than the flu. It's a little bit stronger than the flu, and it is deadly to anyone 70 and on up in age, but it is not what they made it out to be. They amplified this thing through their Mockingbird media, through all the echo chambers, to be something that it is not. They amplified this thing into a massive, massive pandemic. But the pandemic itself is China. It is the worldwide satanic occult. That is the pandemic. And they put a plan in place starting all the way back with John Fitzgerald Kennedy Sr. Let's see what else the Vice President has to say.
But China's actions aren't focused solely on influencing our policies and politics. Beijing is also taking steps to exploit its economic leverage and the allure of their large marketplace to advance its influence over American businesses. Beijing now requires American joint ventures that operate in China to establish what they call party organizations within their company, giving the Communist Party a voice and perhaps a veto in hiring and investment decisions. Chinese authorities have also threatened U.S. companies that depict Taiwan as a distinct geographic entity, or that stray from Chinese policy on Tibet. Beijing compelled Delta Airlines to publicly apologize for not calling Taiwan a province of China on its website. And it pressured Marriott to fire a U.S. employee who merely liked a tweet about Tibet.
So who is in control of YouTube? Who is in control of Twitter? Who is in control of Amazon? Who is in control of all these things? You got it. China. Okay? What exactly was Facebook? Facebook was DARPA. That's what it was. Which is all leaning, it's a system by the CIA, which is part of the communist or the worldwide satanic occult, to do what? To get all information, right? Surveillance on every single individual that uses Facebook. That's what it is. It's all about China. Everything goes back to China. All roads lead to Rome, because that's where it all, well, that's where the heart of this thing is, but it has been transferred, morphed over into the Chinese CCP, that is the Chinese Communist Party. And that is where it's at today. Okay, I've covered the vast majority of the book of Revelation by going through the book of Daniel, because in order to understand Daniel, you got to read Revelation. To understand Revelation, you got to understand Daniel. Because Revelation is the continuation of Daniel, where after the Roman Empire, which is where the book of Daniel ends, then you have this metamorphosis that takes place down through time until eventually the entire beast system is destroyed. And you have 1,000 years on the earth where you have peace. Okay? Where you have the kingdom of heaven, or the kingdom of God, reigning and ruling on the earth, rather than the kingdom of darkness reigning and ruling on the earth. So people ask, well, is Jesus returning soon? I don't know. Nobody knows the time or hour when he's going to show up. But what you do know, you can know the season, but what you do know is that for 6,000 years, the kingdom of darkness, that is the little g god of this world, Satan, has reigned and ruled on the earth, and he was not on the physical earth. But for 6,000 years, him and his kingdom had influence over all of the nations in lies, deceptions, and wickedness. When you go into the 1,000 years, it's the kingdom of God and the Lord Jesus Christ reigning and ruling in the heavens, and the nations of the earth reigning and ruling in righteousness. So is he physically on the earth? Well, it doesn't matter, as long as he is the one that is in control. He is King of Kings, and he is Lord and Judge of all the earth. And he has been since the day he was crucified. But the church fell asleep, just as the scripture said we would. But we had to awaken, and we are going through that awakening process. That's what 2020 was for, and then we're going to go through the transition year this year, which will finish the awakening process and move it to the kingdom of heaven.
And Beijing routinely demands that Hollywood portray China in a strictly positive light. It punishes studios and producers that don't. Beijing censors are quick to edit or outlaw movies that criticize China, even in minor ways. For the movie World War Z, they had to cut the script's mention of a virus because it originated in China.
Now, we just went over that post that showed us that in 2007 they already had the narrative put together. They already had the plan because they were going to put Hillary Clinton into office and bring down the United States and bring all power, all authority over to China. And China would reign and rule on the earth while the United States ceased to exist or becomes a third world nation. And anyone who knew the truth and understood the truth would have been eliminated from the face of the earth. This is that, quote, reset, end quote. Okay? But there's going to be a different reset, and that is a reset that eliminates them from the face of this earth. Now, he just told you that they also control Hollywood. What did I tell you? They control the actors, they control the singers, they control every single thing in your life, and you must be shown this. You have to be shown, because Q has been telling people this whole time, but nobody sees it. Nobody. All these people that are awake, but they don't see it. They don't feel it. They don't understand it. They don't comprehend it. China is the virus. It is the New World Order. It is the worldwide satanic occult. It is that which has been trying to take down the United States for the last 50 solid years. Every president has worked for China until the special selected individuals controlled the votes in such a way to allow your vote to count, and they inserted, by your vote, Donald Trump into the captain seat of the United States Corporation so that he could establish the republic and allow the United States Corporation to come crashing down, to sink in the oceans of remember, we're all lost at sea according to the Pope. And all these corporations are ships on the sea. But we're not getting into that. We're just learning exactly what this China virus is that Trump continues to talk about. This plan has been in effect since well before John F. Kennedy Sr., well before him. Okay? And the white hat people have gone in, infiltrated this entire thing, learned everything about it, and initiated a plan, a 20-year plan that would culminate in the destruction and takedown of this worldwide satanic occult. And the only way that that's going to happen is for everyone to have an understanding and see this beast that is upon the earth. Because until you do, you're under the programming and you will come up against the operation to take it down because you're programmed to do so. But once you have seen it and you have experienced it and you have been oppressed and brought to absolute despotism, then you will arise, and then you will shut this thing down. Let's continue to listen.
The movie Red Dawn was digitally edited to make the villains North Korean, not Chinese. But beyond business and entertainment, the Chinese Communist Party is also spending billions of dollars on propaganda outlets in the United States and, frankly, around the world. China Radio International now broadcasts Beijing-friendly programs on over 30 U.S. outlets, many in major American cities. The China Global Television Network reaches more than 75 million Americans, and it gets its marching orders directly from its Communist Party masters. As China's top leader put it during a visit to the network's headquarters, and I quote, "The media run by the party and the government are propaganda fronts and must have the party as their surname." It's for those reasons and that reality that last month the Department of Justice ordered that network to register as a foreign agent. The Communist Party has also threatened and detained the Chinese family members of American journalists who pry too deep. And it's blocked the websites of U.S. media organizations and made it harder for our journalists to get visas. This happened after the New York Times published investigative reports about the wealth of some of China's leaders.
So at this point, he has very clearly told you that they control the politics. Now he's told you that they control the media. So let's see what next he's going to tell us that they control. The point of the matter is they control all aspects of your life. Every single aspect of your life. And to this day, You haven't understood that. You haven't comprehended that. This is why it has to be shown to the people. Because we can tell you all day long, but until you experience it and you get to that precipice, that moment of destruction, you will not arise, you will not stand up and bring it to its knees. You won't. Because America, as China figured out, as the Vatican figured out, as this worldwide satanic occult figured out, as the kingdom of darkness is figured out, God's people, as Trump said in his inauguration speech, is America. This is where God's people is. We are full of love. We have good hearts. We want freedom. We want liberty. We want peace. Not just for us. We want it for the whole world. That's what we want. We want safe streets. We want no drugs. We want a place where there's abundance and prosperity, where our kids can grow up and enjoy life and all these other various things. That's who we are. So for them, so what they did, this beast system, is they took and they took communism, and communism is what it's always been. Communism and socialism. That's how it's always operated all the way through time. Communism, socialism, dictatorship. That's what it's about. And they transferred all this stuff, and now it's gone through all these metamorphoses. The final thing was the European Union that they used to bring all of this and direct the power over to China and to remove it from we, the people of the United States of America. That's the ultimate goal. That is the plague that is upon the world. They want to eliminate us so they can finish their agenda. Let's listen to what else he has to say.
But the media isn't the only place where the Chinese Communist Party seeks to foster a culture of censorship. The same is true across academia. I mean, look no further than the Chinese Students and Scholars Association, of which there are more than 150 branches across America's campuses. These groups help organize social events for some of the more than 430,000 Chinese nationals studying in the United States. They also alert Chinese consulates and embassies when Chinese students and American schools stray from the Communist Party line. At the University of Maryland, a Chinese student recently spoke at her graduation of what she called, and I quote, the fresh air of free speech in America. The Communist Party's official newspaper swiftly chastised her. She became the victim of a firestorm of criticism on China's tightly controlled social media, and her family back home was harassed. As for the university itself, its exchange program with China, one of the nation's most extensive, suddenly turned from a flood to a trickle. China exerts academic pressure in other ways as well. Beijing provides generous funding to universities, think tanks, and scholars, with the understanding that they will avoid ideas that the Communist Party finds dangerous or offensive. China experts in particular know that their visas will be delayed or denied if their research contradicts Beijing's talking points. And even scholars and groups who avoid Chinese funding are targeted by that country, as the Hudson Institute found out firsthand. After you offered to host a speaker Beijing didn't like, your website suffered a major cyber attack originating from Shanghai. The Hudson Institute knows better than most that the Chinese Communist Party is trying to undermine academic freedom and the freedom of speech in America today. These and other actions taken as a whole constitute an intensifying effort to shift American public opinion and policy away from the American first leadership of President Donald Trump. But our message to China's rulers is this: this president will not back down. The American people will not be swayed, and we will continue to stand strong for our security and our economy.
And let me just say this, even though what you're going to see in the narrative, and as Biden comes into presidency and all these things begin to take effect, we still are not going to back down. As Trump said, our journey has just begun. The military works for the Republic. And these different policies and these different things that Trump put into effect affect the U.S. code as well. U.S. code are the rules and regulations of the corporation that the senators, all the different players of government have to abide by. It's the rules and regulations for them. That's what all rules and regulations of U.S. code is for the government, not for we the people. It's for the corporation. But if you're a slave of that corporation, then those rules apply to you. In other words, if you work for Walmart and Walmart makes these rules and regulations for that corporation and you don't abide by them, you get in trouble, you get a penalty, you get all these things, and eventually you get fired. Okay? However, if me, someone that doesn't work for Walmart, goes into Walmart and doesn't abide by their rules and regulations, it has no effect. There is no consequence upon me unless I break the law. Okay? So that's what these rules and regulations are. It applies to the corporation, not to we the people, unless you're still caught up in the narrative and you're still a slave of that corporation. So these policies and these things that he put into effect will stand even as Biden comes into office. How long will Biden be president? I don't know. Maybe 2 hours. Maybe 4 years. I don't know. How long will it take for the people to wake up? Going back to the frog analogy, if you gradually, slowly bring up the temperature, he will boil to death. But if you rapidly bring up the temperature, that frog will jump out of the pot and run for life. That's what's going to happen. It's going to be cranked up, sped up, and accelerated at a pace that you can see what's happening, and you run. You stand up. You say enough is enough is enough, and you bring the entire system down. That's what this is all about. Now let me see if there's more that I want to go over with the Vice President, or if we're going to end the video here.
Even as we hope for improved relations with Beijing, our administration is going to continue to act decisively to protect America's interests, American jobs, and American security. As we rebuild our military, we will continue to assert American interests across the Indo-Pacific. As we respond to China's trade practices, we will continue to demand an economic relationship with China that is free, fair, and reciprocal. We will demand that Beijing break down its trade barriers, fulfill its obligations, fully open its economy, just as we have opened ours. We'll continue to take action against Beijing until the theft of American intellectual property ends once and for all. And we will continue to stand strong until Beijing stops the predatory practice of forced technology transfer. We will protect the private property interests of American enterprise. And to advance our vision of a free and open Indo-Pacific, we're building new and stronger bonds with nations that share our values across the region. From India to Samoa, our relationships will flow from a spirit of respect, built on partnership, not domination. We're forging new trade deals on a bilateral basis, just as last week President Trump signed an improved trade deal with South Korea, and we will soon begin historic negotiations for a bilateral free trade agreement with Japan. I'm also pleased to report that we're streamlining international development and finance programs. We'll be giving foreign nations a just and transparent alternative to China's debt trap diplomacy. In fact, this week, President Trump will sign the BUILD Act into law. Next month, it'll be my privilege to represent the United States in Singapore and Papua New Guinea at ASEAN and APEC. There, we will unveil new measures and programs to support a free and open Indo-Pacific.
All right, so we're gonna end this speech here. You guys, like I said, you can go watch the entirety of this speech. The link will be in the description of the video, and I highly suggest you do. I did cut out parts that that weren't very important, but are in fact important. I mean, you need to hear everything that he said in this video, in this speech, I should say. So the link will be in the description below. But at this point, you should be able to see what exactly this plague is, this invisible enemy is. Okay, what it is it is that beast. It is that which has been controlling and manipulating mankind from the beginning of time, when sin entered the earth, when Satan showed up on the earth, when we fell to the lowest possible degree of earth, to chaos, to lies, to deceptions, to murder, to wars, to all these various different types of things. It is, in fact, the invisible enemy that uses politics, it uses the economy, it uses military, it uses propaganda, it uses your school systems, it uses every single thing that is in your life to control and to manipulate you without you ever seeing it. It is a slow and gradual process, and as they slowly and gradually do it, you become accustomed to it. They create the divisions. They pin us against ourselves rather than against the controllers, and they do all these various different things in order to bring about the agenda that they want. The goal was a world reset in which the United States is eliminated and those of the truth are removed from the face of the earth. That's not going to be the outcome, because things are now going to be sped up at a very rapid pace, and as this begins to unfold, people are going to be shaken to their core, and as they get shaken to their core, all of the lies, all of the deceptions are going to fade away as the truth begins to trickle out, the proofs and the evidences, and then eventually begins to pour out. And it will become obvious and clear that we are taking back our nation once and for all. You will receive a tweet directly from the president, from Donald J. Trump, that will say, "My fellow Americans, the storm is upon us." And at that point, we will go into a blackout. And it will be an emergency broadcasting system, and it will not be by the President of the United States, but it will be by the military broadcast system, the world broadcast system, the military world broadcast system that it will come across. Because the military works for the President of the Republic, not the corporation called the United States, but rather the Republic, these United States of America. It is going to unfold at a rapid pace. They're going to take office and they're going to start writing executive orders and doing all these things, passing out stimulus checks or monthly checks and all these other various different things. And it's the grip and the control is going to come down upon us. And as it does, eyes are going to open more and more, and eventually we will get to a point all across the earth, the people will get to a point where they see it and they clearly see it, and they will say enough is enough, especially when the movie about pedophiles comes out, right? The Guardians of the Pedophiles. When they really begin to understand what this is all about, and when they really begin to see what has been taking place all their lives and well before their lives, they will at that point arise. But until we get to that precipice, that moment of destruction, they will not arise. The vaccine is not that vaccine that everybody's taking and getting the jitters and shakes and uncontrollable body motions and all these other different things that we're seeing from that vaccine. The vaccine that Trump is talking about is you, the people. And more importantly, you, the people, are the republic. And when he talks about that your states and stuff are being given everything that they need, he's talking about the republic coming back to the various different states. The vaccine is the republic. The vaccine is you. You are the plan. You are the plan. What we're going to do now is we're going to go back and re-listen to what Trump had to say. And this time, if you use your ears and you replace the word COVID or pandemic or China virus and what have you with what you just learned, then you will fully hear what he had to say. It is a plan that started back before COVID ever came into existence. And it is the vaccine, you, the people, the republic, is being distributed to all the various states and all the different things. So let's go back now and let's listen to what the president says, and you'll hear him tell you what you couldn't hear him tell you before.
Because of the pandemic, horrible, horrible, invisible enemy, and despite our tremendous success developing a vaccine years before it was thought even remotely possible. Nobody thought it was going to be possible. They said it would take 5 years. Sir, it will take 7 years. All of our scientists were saying, our advisors, it will take 7 years, 5 years, 10 years maybe. Well, we did it just like I said we would, and we had it out years and years before they thought it was possible. And
years and years before they thought it was possible. All the way back in John F. Kennedy Sr.'s days, the plan was initiated. The virus is this worldwide satanic occult. He is telling you the whole story. Listen again. We'll go back and we'll listen to it one more time.
because of the pandemic, horrible, horrible, invisible enemy, and despite our tremendous success developing a vaccine years before it was thought even remotely possible. Nobody thought it was going to be possible. They said it would.
When did he create the vaccine? 1/20/2017. That's when the Republic came back into existence. Now let's continue to listen.
Take 5 years. Sir, it will take 7 years. All of our scientists were saying, our advisors, it will take 7 years, 5 years, 10 years maybe. Well, we did it just like I said we would, and we had it out years and years before they thought it was possible. And
He's telling you, without them catching the message, exactly what's going on. We have a republic in place. The republic is the vaccine to the pandemic. The pandemic is the worldwide satanic occult, not the flu, the COVID, which is the flu amped up. That's what it is, and it affects the elderly. That's why Cuomo put the elderly into the nursing homes. Now let me explain something to you. It's morphed over into the Chinese Communist Party. Okay, that's where the control factors of the worldwide satanic occult is now in our time. Okay, the control factors of all that is where? In the European Union, which was what? Designed to crash the economies of all the nations and bring about the socialism, the communism, and all that stuff, and transfer the power to China. Okay, the ultimate goal was to collapse the United States because the United States stood in the way, because these were the people of God, the people of loving hearts, the people that cared, the people that are about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And we stood in the way. So they had to overtake or take over the United States government wholly and completely in order to pull off what they wanted to pull off. And to do that, they created futurism, a religion, and got everybody off course. And this was done through the papacy. The papacy became the continuation of Christ on earth and the Holy Father, which are both blasphemies. But they controlled the minds of men on the religious side. You had the political side, which were the various nations as it metamorphosized through time, as we read in the book of Revelation, all the different aspects of the beast, until eventually you get to the end, where it's trying to seize control of all the earth, but its time is up, and it comes to an end. That's where we are in time. Now, does that mean that the Chinese people are against us? Absolutely not. Okay? The Chinese Republic is still good. And that's who Trump's been dealing with Xi, and he's been showing you that on the Republic side, we are friends. He showed you in North Korea, we are friends. He showed you everywhere he went that, Russia handed the soccer ball over to Trump, said the ball's in your court, the ball's in your hand, right? You had Iran, and he had to carry the sword. Only the king of Iran gets to hold the sword during the sword dance. He held the sword. You go over to England, the Queen of England's following him everywhere. He does the inspection of the guards, not the Queen, again showing that he's in charge. And you go through all of the various places that he went, including North Korea, where he stepped into North Korea, something that nobody could do. He stepped into North Korea, showing that also in North Korea, he is the king. He is in charge because he's not part of a corporation. He is the president of the republic. Totally different. He's over the corporations. You understand? So you have the Chinese Communist Party. That's the issue. Not the Chinese people, not the Chinese Republic. North Korea, not an issue. But we were going to go to war with North Korea. You remember when Trump became president? We had all the rioting, breaking windows, breaking down Washington, D.C., burning cities, and all the other different things, and the Democratic Party promoting it and pushing that agenda. Right? What was that? China. The China virus. The China virus. COVID. Before it ever became a term, it was COVID. It was still the plague. It was still the China virus. This is why Trump continually, constantly keeps saying China virus. And the media absolutely detests it, hates it, and tried to shut it down, calling it racism and every other imaginable thing. Right? Because if the people become aware of the true source of all of this evil on the earth, which in reality is Satan, but as far as the beast, the 7-head, 10-horned beast, it is China. It is China currently. But it is also involving the papacy. All roads lead to Rome. All roads lead to Rome. And we already know that. We know that the Leonardo satellites were Rome, right? Nowhere else, Rome. But China is that power, that invisible enemy that is controlling and manipulating all of the various nations of the earth. This is what people have to wake up to. They have to realize that they are already at a state of despotism, but they don't realize it yet because their whole life has been despotism. So they don't understand that they are not the land of the free anymore. Some do. Some have woke up, some have partially woke up, and some are all the way awake. But not everybody. And you got to get everybody on the same page and united under God. And you have to do this with law and with order, not chaos. The enemy operates in chaos, not God's people. Therefore, leave it to the military to do the killing and the arrests and all that kind of stuff. You don't go and do the rioting. You don't participate in the chaos, because if you do, you're an enemy of MAGA, Make America Great Again. You're an enemy of the people. If you create chaos, you are an enemy of the people. You are programmed by the Chinese Communist Party. And you are doing the agenda of the Chinese Communist Party. That's what's going on the earth today. This is where we are, guys. We are at the culmination of all events. People are looking for a rapture. The rapture doctrine didn't even get started until the late 1700s, early 1800s. It didn't even exist prior to that. It is a man-made religion. Religion makes the word of God to none effect. Religion is traditions passed on from generation to generation, which makes the word of God of none effect. It takes the power of His word and removes it. Okay? This is what you got to understand. Now you have a republic in place. And this republic will continue to exist. Donald Trump will still be the president. He is now the 46th president, or he will be the 46th president of the United States. He was the 45th president of the United States while he was setting up all the codes and regulations against the corporation and putting key people in key positions and all these other various things, and also transferring the military, amping up the military, and moving it all into the republic. So this is where we stand, and this is where we are. Now, again, is it possible that this thing will go down before or at the inauguration? Absolutely, it's possible. But between now and then, we have to have a scare event, we have to have a sky event, we have to have the release of declassification, we have to have the release of evidence and the proofs of the frauds, and then we have to have the information come out on pedophilia. We have to have the information come out on the crimes committed by the different various presidents of the United States throughout time. You have to have a lot of information come out of nowhere, and there's just simply not enough time between now and inauguration to pull all these things off. So the only way I can see this playing out, as far as the plan is concerned, is that he is going to allow, he's not going to concede. He has not conceded, he will not concede. He is going to allow the coup to be completed, to be finalized. They will take their position as the captain of the ship of the United States Corporation. Now, once they do that, what are they going to do? This guy here and his entire family are now in danger, right? They want him eliminated because he stood in the way. He was the voice of 75 million Americans. He stood in the way. Now they have turned around and made him those who are programmed in the echo chambers. They have made him look like an enemy. They have made him look like a dictator. They have made him look like all these different things. And so most likely, I don't remember who it was on Twitter that came up with the idea, and I apologize, but somebody on Twitter came up with the idea that the first arrest, the one that's going to shock the entire world, may just be Donald Trump. And that makes sense. It's the only thing right now, at this point, that makes sense. And it indeed would shock the entire world. It would be the shot heard around the world. And what would that cause? A civilian protest all across the land and all across the earth. Then they can move the Marines under the guise of what? Civilian protests. And then they can release the information and the documentation, the proofs and the evidences. The military broadcast system will be initiated, and then the arrest will begin. But it will become obvious at some point that we are taking back this nation again. And when it does, between now and then, it is going to get scary, and people are going to be looking for answers. It is you who know the truth, who stand in the truth, that are going to be able to help and to comfort the people in these trying times. This is the time of Jacob's trouble. Who's Jacob? Israel. Jacob had his name changed to Israel, and from Israel, which is Jacob, the 12 tribes come into being, which are the children of Israel, which are the children of Jacob. Jacob's trouble, which this guy here, the President of the United States, Donald John Trump, told you in the inauguration speech that the American people are God's people. This right here, this land that you are in, the promised land, is Israel. Not only are we Israel, but because we have received the gospel of Jesus Christ, all peoples of all nations can come here to become a part of God's people. It doesn't matter what your color is, what your race is, your nationality is, if you're a male or a female. It doesn't matter if you're educated or uneducated. None of the divisions that they have created matter, because God has created a one people whose sins are forgiven them and who seek to do righteous things, who have a change of heart, who care about people, who want to protect the future generations and give them life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This is where we are, guys. And I hope these videos have helped you dramatically and in ways that you know that you can never give enough thanks to the Father for the information provided to you. Our Father in heaven is amazing. Fear does not come from God. There is nothing at all to fear. There is nothing at all to worry about. Keep yourself away from the riots. Keep yourself out of violence. You are a people of law and order. It is the law and the truth combined that will bring down this deep state once and for all. But until the people are shown and brought to the point of precipice, the point of destruction, they will not wake up and stand up and find the strength to bring this system down once and for all and eliminate these evil people from the face of the earth. So this has to happen. We have to go through these things. But it is nothing to fear, nothing to worry about, as long as you decide to walk righteously and stay away from violence, stay away from rioting, stay away from destruction, stay away from all these different things that are going to come upon us. As long as you do, you'll be fine. You'll be protected by the blood of the Lamb. If you decide to go out and to become, and you fall back asleep and come up into the narrative and get pulled into this narrative all over again, and you really believe Biden is the president, and all these various different things start happening to you, then you're going to fall asleep and you're going to become evil. Your anger's going to well up inside of you, and you're going to become violent, and you're going to be destroyed. So it's all about your heart and the trying of the souls. That's what this is all about. So get ready, and be in prayer continually and constantly, and keep yourself out of trouble's way. Be wise in the times ahead. There is nothing to fear, nothing to worry about. God is with you. God is the one fighting this battle, and he's using the United States military and the President of the United States to do it. So relax, find peace. Peace resides with your Father. Find it, and come back to peace. Relax. There is nothing at all to worry about. They have been in control, that is the Q operation, and are still in control. But most importantly, the King of all the earth, the Judge of all the earth, even Jesus Christ, is in absolute control of what is taking place. And your Father resides over all of it. So find that peace in your heart. And we'll catch you guys in the next video.